Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. Today we have with us Mr. Sanjeev Singh, the CISO and DPO at Birlasoft. He's an industry leader with nearly 3 decades of experience. We also have with us Mr. Besfort Kuqi. He's the CEO of Swiss GRC. They are the leaders in GDPR implementation and GRC solutions. Mr. Sanjeev Singh, thank you so much for joining us here today. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you. I'm well, and I hope you're doing well too.
Thank you so much. So, sir, you've been in the industry for nearly 3 decades now. In your view, how has the GRC landscape evolved in India over the past couple of years?
I would say the landscape is still evolving. In the sense, GRC for us was driven mostly by compliance, and organizations would tend to do the bare minimum that is needed for them to get the checkbox to meet the compliance requirements. I feel with the landscape for attackers and attacks changing, GRC is becoming much more measurable, as well as something that organizations are starting to do not only in letter but also in spirit. And that is where I think a lot more evolution is happening in the GRC space, where rather than doing point of time compliance audits, organizations are trying to get into more continuous GRC, continuous evaluation phase.
Absolutely, sir. You're right there when you mean that it's become an essential now rather than just being a checkbox, right? So, what are some of the most pressing challenges that organizations face today while navigating the rapidly evolving regulatory landscape?
Yeah, one thing I said in my previous answer also, the landscape itself is evolving so rapidly, both in security as well as in data privacy nowadays. Security, we still have industry standards, so to say, where we can still follow things like an ISO 27001 or a NIST cybersecurity framework or NIST risk management framework, so to say, depending upon our needs. And these are still fairly standard globally. But privacy laws are sovereign laws, and these are regulations that you have to follow. And every nation has their own law. There is no standard privacy that people or organizations can follow. And that is where I see a huge challenge today, wherein you have so many different regulations with thousands and thousands of clauses overall. And you have to meet all of those because these are sovereign regulations. You miss one and you're liable to big fines.
Right, you're absolutely right there. So, like you rightly mentioned, these compliances and these regulations should not become a hindrance to operational efficiency. So, what strategies, according to you, should organizations adopt to ensure compliance while maintaining operational efficiency?
So, I think the first thing is going digital. I think globally, a lot of organizations still think of compliance as checkbox or checklists, and they tend to do it in Excel sheets and Microsoft Word documents. I think time has come now, since the landscape has become so complex and so spread out horizontally, that you need to have support from technology, wherein now we start getting into things where we can digitize those processes, automate those processes, and move towards continuous implementation. Because you could be compliant on day 1 of the year, but you could be non-compliant on day 5 and remain non-compliant for the entire year, and on day 1 of next year again you become compliant. That's not the way the world is moving, right? You need to be compliant all 365 days of the year.
Absolutely. What are some of the key trends that we can expect in the GRC landscape in the upcoming years?
And I think there is happening a swift from plain compliance to more proactive and continuous GRC processes. That's one point. And the other point is, of course, it's on everyone's lips, using AI technology to make things more efficient and more effective. Yeah.
So Sanjeev, like you rightly mentioned, India as a market is yet to reach that level of maturity as far as GRC is concerned, right? So how can businesses in India better align their GRC efforts along with the evolving landscape?
I think you're right to say India as a market is still evolving, and there's a lot much to do in terms of maturity when it comes to GRC. I think even within India, there are sectors like banking, financial services, who are relatively more mature, and yet there are many more sectors that are still doing GRC on Excel sheets or pieces of paper, and they have to realize that compliance is an important aspect, not only to do in letter, that is to get a checklist to showcase on their websites, but also to do it in spirit, because that is what leads us to improved, I would say, security maturity as well as resilience for organizations. And I'm sure we'll move in that direction, because even with the latest DPA in India, I can see a lot more organizations scrambling for putting in tools or controls to improve their compliance.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will definitely ask you more on the DPDP later. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your partnership with Swiss GRC. So what motivated Birlasoft to partner with Swiss GRC for governance, risk and compliance solutions, and how does this collaboration align with your strategic goals?
We had been looking for a solution, like I said, for quite some time to bring a lot of maturity to our existing practices. Like many other organizations, we also currently are doing compliance using manual methods, although the processes are defined, but the tracking and the operations of the GRC is still pretty manual. And we were looking for a solution which could automate the entire process for us end to end and move us to a situation where we could be doing continuous compliance. We already had a lot of tools, EDRs, XDRs of the world, which would give us some insight into continuous compliance when it comes to technology. But that did not give me a strategic picture as the CISO and DPO. So we wanted a solution which could give a broad strategic view and yet be extremely agile at tactical level, which actually helps the operational teams to improve their efficiency, reduce their manual work, and so they could do much more with much less. And in our search, thankfully, we came across Swiss GRC, and so thanks for developing the product. We found it to be the best fit for what we were looking for. We went through a very comprehensive POC process. We liked what we saw, and that's when we decided that we would invest in the tool.
That was an excellent insight into the partnership. Thank you, Sanjeev, for sharing that. So, Besfort, now I'd like to come to you. Firstly, congratulations on your partnership with Birlasoft, right? We hope to cover many more such partnerships, with Indian companies, with Swiss GRC. So, according to you, what are some of the key success factors that organizations need to factor in when considering a GRC solution?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I want to say thank you to Sanjeev and team for putting their trust in us. It means a lot to us. And we are truly excited about the opportunity to work with Birlasoft, a major IT company in India. And of course, also to support your GRC journey. To answer your questions, I see two critical points. One is it's crucial to have a clear picture and vision of the objectives you want to achieve. Aligned, and that's important, with the broader company's objectives. Of course, along with an execution plan, which needs to be aligned with all stakeholders, because you need all the relevant people to have on board. Because it's important, if you want to make it a success, to have a high level of acceptance from your most important stakeholders. That's point one, to build a proper foundation for the implementation project. The other thing I see is it has become necessary to switch or change from a reactive compliance approach to a more, integrated and proactive risk management approach. And that's also something which needs to be considered.
You mentioned a little bit about DPDP. So, and there's also a new emerging technology coming out every single day almost, and AI. There's so much happening on that front. So, what role do you foresee this partnership playing in advancing the GRC ecosystem in India, particularly in the context of emerging technologies and data protection regulations?
Well, Birlasoft is an ITS service provider based out of India, but we do work globally. We have large clients globally. We look to first invest in Swiss GRC for ourselves, get our hands on, get our expertise built up in that. And maybe we'll look to be a shining example for others where they can look at us and emulate us in improving their GRC. at some point of time in future, we would want to take this story to our clients and to others, and maybe that could lead to a partnership in future.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to know about your partnership with Birlasoft. What are some of the objectives that you aim to achieve through this partnership?
Birlasoft is our major client right now in India, and I'm sure it will support Swiss GRC to grow here in India because it is a key market for us, along with Middle East and Europe, of course. Yeah, and we are very committed to make it a success and do our best to help Sanjeev and team to get a higher maturity in GRC management.
So Sanjeev, lastly, you've been in the industry for nearly 3 decades now. I mean, you're probably the best person to answer this. The DPDP draft rules are out, right? And the government is currently seeking recommendations until the 28th of Feb. So as a CISO and data protection officer, what do you have to say? If there's one message that you'd like to convey through this interview to the people who are watching this, what would you have to say about the DPDP rules?
First of all, I welcome the DPDP Act and now the draft rules. Because for the first time, the common citizen of this country, they get to have a right and right to their privacy, right? We all know and experience in this country, the awareness of privacy at individual level is pretty low. And I hope that this rule does for India what something like GDPR did for Europe, and followed by respective privacy regulations across the globe. So my first hope and aim is that it genuinely leads to an improved privacy awareness and ecosystem in India over the next few years. Secondly, at enterprise and organizational level, the ones who collect personal data, whether it be B2C companies, B2B companies, they become aware of their responsibilities of how to collect, how to process, how to store, and then how to destroy or delete that data when the time is right. And I hope that maturity comes through. Now, thankfully for us, we have been compliant to regulations like GDPR, CCP, etc. in geographies where we work. So I think we were quite prepared for it. Also being ISO 27701 certified organization for last 5 to 6 years. We were much better prepared to start implementing DPDPA even when the act came out. But I think that's a huge scope for organizations in India, those who had not started yet, to start now, because now the rules are out. There is no excuse.
All right. Thank you so much, Sanjeev and Besfort. It was an absolute pleasure talking to both of you, and congratulations to you on the partnership. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.